Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie, and today we're going to be doing my Spring TBR. I live in Singapore, which is the land of eternal summer, although locals do tell me that there are seasons here, the wet or the dry, and this is definitely the wet season. But the great thing about this time of year in Singapore is that a lot of my orchids are beginning to bloom, and there's still really this beautiful sense of new life and new beginnings and coming out of a winter. All of the books I'm going to talk about today are things that I kind of associate with spring and may not be necessarily set during the spring season. Actually, I don't know how many of them even are, but they're kind of drawing on a lot of those new themes and are kind of, I think, generally a bit happier than what I might typically read. So the first book on my list I've actually already started to listen to as an audiobook, and that is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. I think this is the first book in a duology, and it's just super cozy. The cover just really makes me think spring, all of the flowers, and really anything to do with fairies and nature. And I really get Veronica Speedwell vibes from this book, so far at least. The character is really intellectual, and I'm not sure, she might be kind of coded as neurodivergent as well. And so basically it's about her going to a Scandinavian country to begin to put together a encyclopedia of fairies with her colleague. And I think there's supposed to be a little bit of a romantic subplot in there as well. I also work in research, and I just find the characters really amusing. Even though some of their personalities might be sort of exaggerated, they are still sort of reminiscent of a lot of personalities that you might encounter in research. So I think that adds like a layer of realism for me, at least, as well. Aside from that, I'm also going to be reading Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. And this one I'm going to be doing a reading vlog for. It is a monster, so I'm not sure how long this is actually going to take me to get through, but it's the first dragon book that I have read, I think, since Game of Thrones. And I've heard the author describe it as a sort of feminist retelling of St. George and the Dragon on her Instagram, so Priory of the Orange Tree, looking forward to this quite a bit. Also, the author is coming to do an event in Singapore, and I got very excited about it and went to the bookstore to ask if I needed to buy tickets, and they said no, it's free. And then I asked them, like, how early should I come? And I think I was being quite intense because the store clerk was leaning back, like, for me, kind of like this. And yeah, so I'll get her to meet Samantha Shannon and have her hopefully sign my book. After that, I'm going to be reading The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. Now, this one is supposed to be part of the Folk of the Air series, and I think it's the first in a new duology. So this one is about Prince Oak, who was a child in the original series, and he's basically helping a princess from another court. So I'm really excited actually about reading this, because on the back cover it says, she, that's Princess Surin, that Oak is helping, believes herself to be forgotten until the storm hag, Bogdana, chases her through the night streets. Now, I need to know, what is a storm hag? This sounds like something I would aspire to be. And I don't know what that says about me, but the things that adulthood has done to me, maybe. Yeah, I love Holly Black. I love Folk of the Air, so I'm expecting this to be quite a fun time. So another book that I want to cover in the next few months is Lancelot by Giles Christian. This is supposed to be a retelling of Lancelot's story. It begins when Uther Pendragon is a child during the 5th century. I'm kind of getting the impression that this is much more of like a history and historical retelling rather than anything else. But it does seem like there is still a lot of like magic and the characters that I know and love from the traditional sort of Arthurian legends. And this one is also a duology, I believe, but I think each novel is like a standalone. So this one is about Lancelot, and then the second one is about Galahad, who I believe is Lancelot's son. Following that, I'm going to be reading The Song of Forever Rains by E.J. Mello. And this one I bought purely for the cover and the first line. Let me read it for you. It says, "The little girls played in a puddle of blood. They didn't realize it was blood, of course, nor did their nursemaid realize that they had slipped from their rooms to find their way into the dungeons hidden under the palace." I think I am clearly the target audience for this book. Or I love it kind of reminds me of like the Mucha posters, and it has lots of like plants and I don't know, springy things in my mind. But this is supposed to be like a dark romantic fantasy. Follows a young woman who is a group of 3 sorceresses. This is the first in a trilogy. So I think each book follows a different sorceress. And so this one is going on her first solo mission, kind of undercover to be a prospective bride for a guy who is stealing from their kingdom, which is called the Thief Kingdom. But that is The Song of Forever Rains. Yeah, the world building sounds really interesting, and it sounds like there might be some like Gaelic influence in the names, Darius McKenna and a guy named Lachlan. So I guess we'll find out. The next 3 books are actually going to be from local Singaporean authors. So Singapore actually produces quite a bit of really interesting fiction that I'm keen on getting more familiar with. The first one is going to be The Formidable Miss Cassidy, and this one is about a governess who comes to Singapore in the late 1800s, and she lives and works here for a while and kind of encounters like different kinds of ghosts, like the Pontiana and I think the Hantu as well, and has all of these like sort of supernatural encounters. And it's quite short, it's under 250 pages, I believe. So I'm quite excited to get started in that. Okay, the other 2 sort of Singaporean published books that I want to read are first The Gatekeeper by Noralia Norisid and The Fisherman King by Katerina Mohammed Daoud. This book takes place in a place called Mantikura, which, as I understand, is like a speculative analog for Singapore. And it's kind of a blend of Malay mythology, I believe, with Greek mythology. So it's actually about a young Medusa named Rhea who accidentally turns a village to stone when she gets angry. I believe is trying to atone for it. Yeah, so that is The Gatekeeper, and I'm quite excited to get started on this one. And then The Fisherman King is quite short as well. I think it's under 200 pages, but it's basically about a man named Lisan who is trying to prove that he is descended from Brunei royalty. In the back cover, it also says something about 2 doomed royal siblings having kind of a forbidden relationship of some kind. I don't know what kind of relationship that is. I have suspicions. And a fearsome serpent god named the Nabu, which I believe is like a water serpent. So yeah, that's The Fisherman King. I also want to read Untethered Sky by Fonda Lee. This is like a very short novella. Again, a lot of very short books on this list today. But I've never actually read her series Jade City, although that is on my TBR. And this feels like just a quick, easy, nice way to kind of get into her writing style. So this one is coming out in just a few days, and it follows a young woman whose family was killed by manticores, and she's trying to seek revenge and develops kind of a relationship with this rook, like one of those giant fantasy birds, to exact her revenge. I feel like there's a lot more non-traditional, like as in not dragons in fantasy, things like the rook and manticores becoming a bit more popular, and I'm really enjoying that. I also want to read Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. I hear about Studio Ghibli stuff all the time, and I really want to get into it. And I've seen like lots of clips of the show Howl's Moving Castle, but I hear that the book is very different, so obviously I have to read the book first. It just seems like really fun, imaginative story that I can just sink into with some tea one cozy evening, and I'm quite keen on that. And finally, I'm going to be reading Happy Place by Emily Henry, and this just feels like the ultimate spring book because it is a second chance romance, I believe, where a group of friends goes on like an annual holiday and pretend to still be together so they don't disrupt the friend group. I'm sure that will be really fun and should lead perfectly into summer. That's it for me for today, guys. I hope you all have a lovely day, and thank you for spending some of it with me. Bye-bye.